I had just turned off the shower, letting the last warm water slide down my skin, when the door creaked open and there he was. My nephew, standing frozen in the doorway, eyes wide with shock, and suddenly the heat of the water on my body seemed to vanish as a cold wave of panic swept through me. I froze, unable to move, my mind racing as Martin's hesitant voice filled the silence, carrying an awkward uncertainty that mirrored the weight pressing down on us both, the room heavy with a tension neither of us had anticipated. As my heart pounded wildly in my chest, and I struggled to comprehend how our private, mundane moment had turned into something raw and unbearable, something that made the walls of the bathroom seem to close in, the air thick with the unspoken, with the kind of electricity that left my limbs trembling. "Martin, what the hell are you doing?" I demanded, my voice shaking under the strain of fear and disbelief, and he didn't answer immediately. Instead, standing there as if caught between reality and some incomprehensible thought, his gaze flickering nervously between my face and the floor, hesitant, searching, yet impossibly intense, a look that sent a strange, involuntary shiver through me, something that made my body betray my instincts to push him away, even as my mind screamed for him to leave, and for the first time I felt the precariousness of our boundaries, the fragility of the roles we had always taken for granted. The sacred lines of family and trust suddenly blurred under the weight of his presence. As Lucas's shallow, uneven breathing betrayed his own internal conflict. The words he wanted to say trapped in his throat, his lips moving silently while the air around us seemed to thicken with an almost unbearable anticipation. And yet, despite the chaos inside, despite the knowing knowledge that nothing about this was right, there was a pull, magnetic and confusing, that I couldn't deny, a force that left me frozen. Body, responding instinctively to the nearness of someone I had always known as innocent, as a part of a world I controlled, yet who now seemed to carry a darker, dangerous energy, an intensity that both frightened and inexplicably intrigued me. As he whispered my name, soft, tentative, testing the boundaries of our connection, words fumbling from his lips, his confusion mirroring mine, as the room itself seemed to hold its breath, echoing the unspoken desires and conflicts that hung between us like a living entity, making every second stretch unbearably long. My heart racing as though it might burst through my chest, mind torn between anger, fear, and a forbidden, inexplicable curiosity. Each beat of my pulse a reminder of how utterly out of control everything had become, how quickly the familiar had transformed into something threatening yet compelling as he stepped closer, closing the gap between us, his hand brushing lightly against my arm, a touch that sent tremors through me, igniting emotions I had not understood and could not name, a mixture of dread and an involuntary longing. And though my mind urged me to flee, to reclaim some sense of rationality, my body hesitated. Rooted in place by the sheer weight of what was happening, the room now a crucible of forbidden tension, the sound of dripping water the only reminder of a reality I could barely grasp, while he murmured almost coaxingly words that implied knowledge of feelings I had buried. A truth I was not ready to confront, his voice low, intimate, carrying a heat that made the air between us pulse with possibility and danger. And despite knowing the wrongness of it all, despite the ethical and emotional chasm yawning before me, I could not ignore the visceral impact of his presence. The way every instinct in my body screamed in conflicting directions, a battle of desire and morality that left me trembling with indecision, trapped in a moment that seemed to stretch into infinity, as he leaned closer, lips brushing near my ear, words dripping like poison and honey together. Confessing long-suppressed feelings, asserting that he saw what I refused to admit. That the tension, the pull, was mutual, and with each step, each whisper, the room seemed smaller, the walls pressing in, the very air charged with a dangerous electricity, the rational part of me screaming that this was my nephew, my family, someone who should be untouchable in my mind and heart, and yet another part of me, confused and shame-filled, ached to respond. To acknowledge the undeniable connection, the attraction that should never exist, all while my inner voice warned of consequences too catastrophic to contemplate. And then, as if fate itself were conspiring to shatter the fragile control I clung to, footsteps approached outside the bathroom, sending a jolt of panic through me, every nerve ending alight with the terror of exposure, my body stiffening, my hands trembling as I realized it was not just anyone, it was my husband. Shim, the one person who had always trusted blindly, whose presence now threatened to expose everything the carefully constructed veneer of normalcy and safety, poised to collapse, and as Martin's eyes met mine, conflicted, vulnerable, filled with a mirrored dread and longing. I felt the last thread of control slip through my fingers, every possibility of containing the situation evaporating. And then the door turned, and he was there, phone in hand, reality crashing down in waves of guilt, shock, and fear. Words spilling out that confirmed my deepest dread. He had seen us, seen the messages, the evidence of betrayals. I had never intended to reveal a tapestry of lies unraveling in an instant, leaving me raw, exposed, my mind spinning as the weight of my choices pressed down with suffocating force. Martin stepping back but still present, still an undeniable part of this catastrophe. And the room, once a sanctuary, now a chamber of revelations and consequences, every heartbeat echoing the enormity of what had transpired, the irrevocable fracture of trust. The dangerous allure that had grown between family lines and forbidden desires, leaving me frozen, gasping, unable to reconcile the woman I had been with the chaos of this moment, trapped between shame, fear, and the lingering, impossible tension with Lucas as the world outside continued, oblivious to the internal storm. And yet inside every thought, every emotion, every pulse of my heart screamed that nothing would ever be the same. That this single moment, this collision of desire and betrayal, had altered the landscape of my life irreparably. A dangerous game poised to unravel further, leaving us all teetering on the edge of truths that could never be reclaimed, choices that could never be undone, and a web of consequences stretching outward, threatening to consume us. A moment suspended in time, charged with forbidden energy, guilt, and the lingering, haunting pull of a connection that defied everything I thought I knew about family, love, and myself, leaving me trembling, breathless, caught in a dangerous limbo, unable to retreat, unable to advance, staring into eyes that held both recognition and peril. As the sound of the shower, the cold floor beneath me, and the footsteps outside collided into a perfect storm of tension, shame, and desire. And I realized with a gut-wrenching certainty that life, as I had known it, was over-transformed in an instant by forbidden truths, impulsive actions, and the stark, unrelenting clarity of being caught, exposed, and irrevocably altered by a single, unbearable, unforgettable moment that would haunt every thought, every heartbeat, every shadow of my life from that day forward. Leaving me, Margaret, poised on the precipice of ruin and revelation, trapped in a single impossible instant with Martin, and watched by the world I had always trusted to protect me, yet now entirely powerless. Suspended between past and future, morality and instinct, fear and attraction, in a storm of emotion too vast to contain. And knowing that the consequences of this moment, and of what we had almost done, would ripple endlessly, leaving nothing untouched, nothing unchanged, nothing safe, and that in that room, with Martin so close and my husband so near, the boundaries between desire, family, and morality had collapsed completely, leaving me suspended in a liminal space of confusion, guilt, fear, and unbidden longing, a space I could neither escape nor reconcile, a space where every breath, every glance, every touch carried the weight of unthinkable consequences, and I knew with an unshakable certainty that nothing would ever be the same again.